The Holocaust. Oh my God. It's too painful to write about. The first thing popping in my head is the search for revenge. I look at my grandfather and grandmother each day. I see the numbers on my grandfather's arm and I think to myself, why? So many questions are running through my head. Like, how could the world not know? How could everybody just be quiet and not do anything about it? I'm so angry. A lot of my family died in the Holocaust, and when I hear the stories about it, it's too hard. The hardest thing of all is that my grandparents do not talk about it. When there is Holocaust Memorial Day, they just turn off the TV and are quiet all day long. They light candles for all their relatives that passed away. My grandparents came from Czechoslovakia and were teenagers during the war. My grandmother was 7 years old in 1939. She was forced to wear a yellow star on her clothes. The family was taken to a war camp and their older brother taken to Auschwitz. My grandmother and her family were hiding in a village, but the father of my grandmother was cut and also sent to Auschwitz. The rest of the family was killed, except for my grandmother, her younger brother, and her mother. After 50 years, my grandmother found out that her older brother was saved and living in Czechoslovakia. He had married a Christian woman and her family had saved him. 3 years ago, she reunited with him for the first time in 50 years. My grandfather was also taken to Auschwitz. When he was released at the age of 18, he weighed only 35 kilos. He somehow survived the death march. His entire family was killed, and only him, his brother, and father was saved. My grandparents never talk about their experience, but when I began writing this monologue, I asked my mom, and she finally told me what happened. Maybe now I can try to understand how this happened. Well, it's not true. I could never understand. How could someone be so cruel, without soul? I guess they were just sick people, because if not, then I will lose all my beliefs in the human race. So when I think about 6 million people that were killed in all kinds of ways, I guess I just can't understand. It's so hard for me to hear people say that the Intifada is exactly the same as the Holocaust. I feel there isn't anything similar between those two things. I wish the Intifada would stop. But sometimes I just don't see a solution to this. Since the beginning of the Intifada, the lives of the Jews and the Arabs have changed. The Jews and the Arabs are afraid to leave their homes, and our lives have become normalcy to who is going to die that day. My opinions have grown at this camp, and I feel the only solution is to take the land of Israel and split it into two countries. One side the Arabs, and on the other side the Jews. On every side there are people that are extreme, and they want all the land. Until they will have it, it won't be pleased. So many times there were bombings in places where I go a lot. For example, 1 month ago, there was an explosion near the mall in Netanya. We go there a lot, and my mom and I were supposed to be there that day. I was really scared when I heard about the bombing because I could have been killed. Also, just a few days ago, there was shooting on a bus in Shufaram, an Arab Israeli village. The man who shot people was an Israeli soldier. My dad works there, and one of his employees warned him after the shooting to leave because he's a Jew who works in an Arab community. Both of those examples show that the violence comes from both sides. It's so hard for me to hear some people's opinions. I love Israel. It's my home, it's my love, it's my family. Each day I hear conversation of my parents and their fears about my brother who is in the army. I will never apologize about my rights to live in this country that my grandparents built in their own hands. No soldier enjoys being in Gaza or Ramallah or the checkpoints, and no family like mine is enjoying worrying about their children's life each day. But it's the only way to prevent suicide bombers and give a feeling of safety to the citizens of Israel, Jews and Arabs as one. I wish someday that we could live in peace, and I hope that the suffering of my grandparents and all the Israeli people will end. I hope I can play a small part in this.